Who are Oracle's customers?
Oracle pretty much has every single enterprise customer on the planet. As anyone knows, we have done a large number of acquisitions over the last several years, and we traditionally had a large base in the Oracle database market. The application server market has been growing drastically, and so also with the acquisitions in the application space, including BEA, we're now pretty much a worldwide, every single enterprise customer, small, medium, large, is an Oracle customer. So we're in every industry, we're in every sort of application space, and we're pretty much a global everywhere company.
What is driving market growth for Oracle?
First off, we're obviously competing with a number of large companies, and so we're driven by technology, we're driven by innovation, and every time we release a new product, when the new database comes out, Oracle 11g provides a huge number of features that nobody else has in their products. We're solution oriented, so we try in every industry to figure out what the customers really need and make sure we can have a top to bottom solution. If you look at our product stack, we have an application space array in every area. We have application server with a plugin architecture that supports pretty much every standard on the planet. Obviously, our database product has been growing in functionality. We focus on stability. We focus on being able to handle the large amounts of data that people have these days and need to maintain. And we have a management product. We have the Linux operating system for support, and we have a virtualization product with Oracle VM. So we really have a top-to-bottom solution, and for many customers that actually can drive down the cost because we're making it easy, a single point of contact, a single place to go from a product delivery point of view and an actual solution point of view without having to assemble pieces from different companies, and so that actually benefits our customers a lot.
What is driving grid computing and virtualization in the data center?
Well, these trends have been, I guess, discussed in the press a lot as well, and from customers in general. I mean, one thing is that data centers keep growing, people keep buying new hardware, and just like Oracle as a customer and user of lots of hardware and having large data centers and huge volumes of computers, we have tens of thousands of systems within the company. And so for ourselves, energy and power consumption is a big issue. Space in the data center is a big issue. We run out of space, we need to build a new data center, we need to make sure that the cooling is right, and so forth. And so virtualization helps us with consolidation, which is pretty much the main reason that people jump into virtualization relatively soon. On the grid side, I think what's interesting is that we've been trying to promote, from an Oracle point of view, we've been trying to promote Linux as an operating system and low-cost hardware, so standard building blocks, a 1U server, 2U server, whether it comes from Dell or HP or Sun or IBM, it doesn't matter. It's a similar hardware platform with the same operating system. And as such, people can build out full racks of systems and then easily say, my database server needs 2 or 3 machines, but at the end of the month it needs 4, so they can easily move capacity back and forth. And so the grid computing part helps with changing capacity. The middleware grows and shrinks, the database servers grow and shrink with the clustering, and virtualization helps consolidate these systems into smaller environments so that you can run 3 or 4 of these database servers or middleware servers on a single machine if they were to only use maybe 10–15% of CPU. I think one of the problems we've had is, or problem is a big word, one of the things that we've seen is that people try to put one database per server, and if that database is then used for 5 or 10% of the system, then there is a lot of overhead, and virtualization helps reduce that amount of overhead.
How have blades played a role in today's data center?
There's a number of things. One is, of course, when you look at data center deployments and you want to save on space, then a blade center helps doing that because the cooling is integrated. The blades are actually very small, single slots you plug in. A few years ago, blades were not as interesting because they were only 1 or 2 cores. They were only maybe 4 to 8 gigabytes of RAM. But today, a single blade is just as powerful as a standard server you can purchase, whether it's a 1U or 2U server. So there's a lot of advantages on having power savings, on cooling being integrated, and so forth. At the same time, from an Oracle point of view, we do think that just the standard model of having 1 or 2U servers and standard building blocks in general also have a lot of benefits, because you have a lot more vendor choice. You can buy a 1U server today from one vendor. Tomorrow you can replace that immediately, that one slot, from another vendor. While with blade centers, you really have a chassis that's dedicated to a specific vendor. So it's not really lock-in, but there's a little bit less choice you have at that point in time.
What are the benefits of automatic storage management?
ASM was introduced with Oracle 10G a number of years ago, and basically ASM is some sort of a volume manager for Oracle database, pretty much. The easy way to describe it is on every system within your cluster, you give all the disks to Oracle. You do not have to partition disks, you do not have to create file systems on them, you do not have to create separate LUNs that are small for different data files, you don't have to worry about which database belongs to which LUNs and so forth. You just say, here's a pool of storage, give it to the database ASM instance, and then Oracle manages the storage. And there's many advantages for this, and primarily because we know the data. So first off, from a data placement point of view, if you create multiple databases within a single ASM storage environment, we basically stripe all the Oracle database data across all the volumes, so that we use the same stripe and mirror everywhere methodology. Secondly, when there's a crash or something similar like that, we know the data. So when we recover from a system failure and we have to do resilvering, we read an Oracle block and we know that the block is correct or not. When you have a volume manager underneath the database from any vendor, the vendor does not know what the data is on top. They have to assume that everything is invalid. Within the Oracle database, we know the data blocks are valid or not when we read the data. So this allows us to be a lot more intelligent on the recovery side. And from a database administrator point of view, you just don't have to worry about data anymore. You type create database, the database gets created, and that's it. So it just makes life a lot more easy for any of the system administrators and database administrators.